My former best friend didn't care that her close friend essayed me in my sleep, even planning to marry him, so I told her brother and now she can kiss her dreams of a happy family goodbye. Posted by you/unconsciousleak85. A little backstory is needed, so please bear with me. Growing up, I, 27F, had a childhood friend, Angie, 27F, who was as close as a real sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's places, celebrated family events, etc., from age 6 until 18. I even lived at her place in 2nd grade while my parents went through a nasty divorce. I learned to speak some Russian, as she is Russian, and she learned to speak some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and little sister were like family to me. During our teenage years, she had 2 male best friends, one of whom she started dating, and another one, Nico, now 29M, who was also Russian, whom I started dating at 17. Growing up, I had issues with a heart condition. I won't bore you with the details, but I had to take a lot of meds. I started getting healthier from age 16. I didn't have to take them daily, only when my heart rate became irregular, at which point I had to take them immediately, as it would become extremely painful, my heart would cramp, and I would start to hyperventilate. All my friends knew this, Nico included, and knew that I would black out if my meds were taken with alcohol. I didn't smoke or drink much growing up as a result, since I was worried about my health and only drank at home or in a safe setting. The legal drinking age is 16 here, and I only drank wine or beer, if at all. I had my first time with Nico at 17, and when my parents stayed at a retreat 2 weeks later, he came over for a date night. I did drink 1 glass of wine, but later started having health issues, which resulted in me taking my meds and becoming unconscious. I was a bit sore the next morning but didn't think much of it. 2 weeks later, I informed Nico that I was late on my period, and he started to panic, confessing that he had intimacy with me while I was unconscious. We had done it before, so he didn't think much about it. Apparently, he didn't have a condom, but since I was on the pill, he figured it was alright, and he also didn't finish inside but in a tissue. I felt violated and disgusted with myself. I didn't know how to describe this and only told Angie about it. I was an utter mess for a few years and wasn't able to have intimacy again until 2 years later. I didn't remember any of it, but I was too ashamed to go to my mom or anyone else. I didn't think of it as great back then. I was too young to really understand what and how I was violated, and Angie told me it's alright, saying I should break up if I feel bad about it, but we were in a relationship and did have intimacy before. I broke up with him the following day, and apparently he cried about his broken heart to her. As Nico and Angie were close and spent a lot of time together, they started dating a few months later, and I had to see him every time I visited her. I told her I wasn't able to see him, but she didn't understand where I was coming from. The contact stopped, and we haven't texted or seen each other in years. I still followed her and her family and saw that her brother is expecting his first child. As I was extremely close with her family, I commented on the Instagram post, expressing my gratitude when he reached out to me. I missed his wedding, but he asked if I would be interested in joining the baby shower since it's been years and we were extremely close before. He told me I was like a third little sister. I just asked if Nico would be attending as well, since Angie and he have been dating for 9 years now, and he said yes. I didn't elaborate much, but I just expressed that I'd send a small present if he could give me his current address, but I wouldn't be attending. He kept pestering me about what exactly happened all those years ago and why I'm no longer in their lives. Angie told her family I wasn't able to see her with an ex of mine, but her brother thought there was more to it. So, I told him the truth about what happened back then. While I didn't know it at 17, I now know that it was grape, and I named it as such. I didn't receive any message back from him, but a few days later, Angie reached out to me, furious. Nico had planned to propose during the baby shower, but Angie's brother is now against it, having learned why I stopped contact. She loves Nico and will stay with him, but by doing so, her brother said she is no longer a part of his life, as he doesn't want his little baby girl in the same family as a rapist. Since then, I've been receiving messages from old high school acquaintances, telling me I should have ignored it and not told anyone. They say that since I didn't speak up back then, I lost the right to do so now, and I'm a horrible person for ruining someone's life over something he did 10 years ago when he himself was a child as well. Am I wrong for speaking up? Update 10 days later. First of all, I am immensely thankful to all the people who took the time not only to read through my story but also to comment. I read every single comment and tried to respond to as many as possible. It gave me a little bit of hope for compassion toward victims of grape, and also the courage not to cave to the backlash I received. Reading all the messages defending my choice to speak up made me realize how insecure I was about what I'm allowed to do and how much I was trying to make things right for other people instead of for myself, especially Nico and Angie. All of you are right. If Nico had changed, he would have apologized, reached out, or tried to make amends in some way, either when word got to him from his brother-in-law or at some earlier point in his life. My former best friend Angie should have been able to feel some compassion if she had any respect for me as a human being or for the time we spent together. Her reaction showed me that I shouldn't hesitate in my actions. I started therapy when I was 21 and thought I had moved on from the grape as best as I could, but I realized how ashamed I still am almost 10 years later about an incident that wasn't my fault at all. I was ashamed to speak up back then and afraid that the people around me would look at me differently. Somehow, I still felt bad about speaking up today, so I'm trying to own what happened to me now and not apologize for other people's behavior, especially since they don't even show me respect. Now, onto what happened. I archived every nasty message I received on WhatsApp so I wouldn't have to read them, but I kept them as proof in case I needed them later. Angie's mom called me the day after the incident, crying. I probably shouldn't have answered, but after 10 years of friendship, I saw her as an aunt, almost a second mom. She'd always joked that while her own children would run around the house doing whatever, I would always take the time to sit with her, have tea, and talk, showing her more love and time than her actual children. While she said she was sorry for what had happened and for what I went through as a child, she couldn't believe I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. With Angie's brother refusing to have Nico as part of the family and Angie standing by Nico's side, it's divided their family, and she is heartbroken. She has grown to love Nico like family and has only known him as a considerate young man, someone she believes will make her daughter happy. It wasn't nasty names or angry words, just a heartbroken mother who pretended to acknowledge my pain but ultimately saw the fault in me. Angie's mom tried to get me to apologize or to take it back, but I refused because I don't see the fault in myself. With everything that's happened, I believe Nico hasn't changed and is just hiding it better. He can see how people are standing by him and supporting his behavior, so he feels no need to change. And that's something I didn't want to enable. Angie's mom never once used the word grape, and I tried to correct her every time she spoke about it. I kept trying to name it for her to understand better, but she would just start sobbing more. It didn't make sense for us to continue the conversation. Angie's mom used to stay in contact with mine for some time, and she reached out to her after our talk. I was worried my mom would find out, given her more conservative background. We had a long conversation, and though I haven't seen her in person yet, she apologized for not being there for me or for not making me feel like I could talk to her. I tried to reassure her as best I could, but when she asked if my current partner knows I was used like that, I got angry. She was afraid my partner would leave me if he found out, implying that what happened made me less valuable or appealing. When she asked me to keep it a secret from our family abroad and back home, I hung up. She acted exactly the way I was afraid she would, as if it's something shameful. This was especially difficult because I'm trying my best to move away from the feeling of shame. She has since apologized, but it's clear that her view of me has changed. I'm not sure yet how to deal with that, but it's something to worry about in the coming weeks. As some of you suggested, I wrote to Angie's brother, Sven, again and apologized for the mess. I also said I'm glad it's out in the open and that I'm proud of him for defending his family. I asked if his old email is still working, as I planned to send a gift card. He didn't respond, but I got a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for speaking up and informing them about Nico. Apparently, there had been a few moments that made her uncomfortable, like some jokes Nico made, and in retrospect, she now understands why. Sven informed her as soon as he got my initial message, and since then, they have both seen Angie but not Nico. She refuses to be in the same room or house as him, and the same goes for their unborn daughter. Sven and Angie's mom have visited their place multiple times, begging them to forgive Nico. Sven has caved a little. Angie and Nico will get married, and Sven will attend, but his wife will not. Nico is allowed in the family but will have no contact with Sven's wife or daughter. These restrictions do not apply to Angie. Sven has been suffering, trying to ease his mother's worries, and isn't able to take a stand to cut them out completely. The compromise he made was without his wife's approval, and she told me she's doing her best to cut them out of their lives indefinitely. She also mentioned wanting to move closer to her family and feels this might be the perfect opportunity, though she's unsure if she can follow through. She told me how terribly sorry she is for all the issues that have come my way and admitted it has been a lot for them to handle on their side as well. Sven knows it's not my fault, but he doesn't want contact. It's difficult for him to talk to or see my name because, even though he knows I'm not to blame, he still sees me as the bearer of bad news and the beginning of all this drama. His wife has told me several times that neither of them believes I'm the bad guy. They're just exhausted by everything, and it's been extremely hard on them. That's all that has happened so far. I'm frustrated with how everything turned out. It feels like Nico will just continue with his life without being remorseful. I didn't want him to suffer, but some part of me hoped for at least an apology for all the suffering I went through afterward. Now, I'm dealing with my mother's changed and shameful view of me, and even though I'm glad the truth is out, it's incredibly hard to stand by my choices. My partner and my best friends have been my rock throughout this ordeal. My best friend, in particular, has been enraged on my behalf, and I'm extremely grateful to have both of them by my side. Right now, I'm just emotionally drained, but I'm sure things will get better in a few weeks.
Am I the asshole for calling my GF vain for ruining our vacation? My 28F had cystic acne growing up and had a lot of scars on her face. We met when she was 22 and her skin was much worse then. She used to cake on makeup because she said she felt like people would judge her for her scars and acne. I don't think anyone ever did, but she insisted she wouldn't be in public without makeup. She got into skincare and skin treatments. I don't know what they all were, but her skin has improved a lot. Her skin has a lot more smooth, and she's a lot more confident. She used to wear baggy clothes, but now she dresses better and doesn't wear makeup as much. So that all great, but we recently went to Japan for a trip. My parents are currently in Japan for a year as they retired and always wanted to live there for a bit. My girlfriend and I went to visit them for 3 weeks. She told me she wanted to do some skin treatments there and was in contact with a clinic. I didn't assume it was a problem until we go there, and it turns out she was going to do a treatment every week. So for 1-2 hours every week she was there when the rest of us were doing other things. We moved around some stuff for her so she didn't miss too much, but she did miss a trip to Mount Fuji with her second treatment. I told her she shouldn't be dealing with her skin when we got to go to Japan for vacation, but she insists it was a big deal to her. I don't even notice much from the treatments, but she says there is a big improvement in the tone. She kept pointing out how she thinks her skin has improved and I called her vain, and that started a fight. I think she's way too obsessed with her looks. She is also now on a diet even though she has never been big at all and is going to the gym nearly every day.
I, 34F, found out my husband, 41M, did something unfathomably horrible, but I'm stuck? I'm shaking writing this post right now. I'm using a throwaway account. Yesterday I went on my husband's iPad after having a bad gut feeling in my stomach. I saw something I was not at all expecting. It was a message from a woman friend of his. Not to give too many details to not reveal anything, but it alludes to her being done with him due to things that happened the last time they hung out. It talks about them having alcohol and possibly cocaine, since she talks about powder, and then it talks about him leaving her and her waking up alone, and it alludes to him doing something to her, and she is not pressing charges, but she doesn't want to hear from him again. I feel frozen. This does not sound like my husband, and I feel like I'm going through the motions of my life. I'm terrified to confront him, since obviously I don't know who he is or what he is capable of. I've been acting normal while inside I'm dying. I'm numb. I'm scared. We have a daughter and I rely heavily on his finances. I don't know how we would make it if we left. My question is, am I a terrible person for acting as if I don't know about this or no, until I figure out how to make it out? I feel guilty about this woman and what she went through. I just don't know what to do. I feel like I need a few months to get my life together without him before I can leave for my daughter's sake. He has never been a danger to us, but now I look at him as if he is a stranger. I found out my husband may be a monster. Can I go through the motions and not confront him for a few months while I make a plan? Does that make me as horrible as him? I'm scared. Answering questions I've seen quite a bit. What did he respond with? Answer: nothing. He never had a response. She said there is not a statute of limitations and not to contact again. 2. Where did I think he was that night, and why would I believe what she is saying is true? Answer: I looked back through my messages for that date, she stated, and he was in fact gone to his brother's all night. I was unable to get a hold of him that night. That is a big coincidence in my opinion. Thank you for your kind and insightful advice. I'm taking it all in.
The ultimate guide on how to attract and be worshipped by women. He stalked the stage, staring at the crowd filling the auditorium. Ladies, and who am I kidding? There are no ladies here. Ha 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 ha. Laughter echoed throughout the hall. Hello, gentlemen. It's an honor to be with you this evening. Rapturous applause. It's good to be back among my people. So often I feel that I'm among strangers, but here we all understand each other, don't we? 1,500 men hung on every word. And it's good, because too often the world doesn't understand us. Have you ever felt misunderstood, abused, disrespected? They nodded like puppets on the same string, especially by women. Flaunting their bodies, taunting us, then rejecting us when we approach them, laughing at us, mocking us. But no more. No more will you be ignored, underappreciated, mistreated, because I'm here to share the secret to making anyone you want yours. You could have heard a pin drop. First, insult her. You don't have to knock her down a peg without chasing her away. Wow, what a great dress. With better makeup, you look fantastic. The key is to offend her but make her want your approval. They all do, after all, even if they won't admit it. Seriously. Then, when you take her home, and you will, rock her world like never before and then act like she doesn't matter. She'll be so confused, she'll do whatever it takes to keep you coming back. Finally, after she's begged and humiliated herself, you can laugh at her and throw her away, just as you've been laughed at and thrown away. Because that's what she deserves. That's what they all deserve. They were listening like it was everything they've been waiting to hear their entire lives. And it went on, until finally he finished. Congratulations, gentlemen, you're now on your way to living the life you deserve. A toast to your future success. The audience members all drank and then began talking to each other excitedly about how their lives were about to change. If only they knew. Without warning, one man stopped speaking and reached for his throat. His neighbor reached out to help, but then he grabbed for his own throat and fell to the ground, flopping. He was followed by another and another, until every member of the audience had collapsed to the ground, convulsing back and forth in some macabre choreographed dance. I stepped around them and walked to the stage where the host lay, writhing on his back and foaming at the mouth. I bent over him. That feeling you have right now? Confused, scared, not knowing what's happening or how it all went wrong. That's how Julie felt after you used her and threw her away like trash, right before she took a bottle of pills as she lay in the bathtub. I removed the catering apron and cyanide bottle and dropped them over him as he took his final breath. This is for my sister, you evil fucking bastard.
October 31st, 2007. I was supposed to die, but I can stay in yesterday. I was doodling Happy Tree Friends characters when we were hit. October 31st, 2007. The sky darkened, a single strand of my hair fell in my face, and that was it. It's not humanly possible for the brain to register something that fast. I stabbed the button on my iPod at the right time, which saved me. It was always the same song. I never doubted Nate wasn't awake. I was just in denial. And maybe I was tired of fighting my shitty iPod. So I let the song continue, watching the sky turn impossibly black, a single strand of my hair falling in my eyes. Maybe I was okay with dying. Something has been impersonating me for over half my life. The first occurrence that I know of happened when I was 15. I was sleeping on the living room couch and needed to wake up early, so I'd set an alarm on an old digital timer for 5 a.m. The timer went off closer to 3 a.m. and failed to wake me up. My mother is a light sleeper and came out to turn off the alarm. As she entered the living room, she saw me bent over the coffee table rummaging around like I was half asleep looking for the timer. She says she laughed at me and said, "Dotro Fedman Lover, the timer is right here," while grabbing it from a side table and turning it off. By then she was standing right over the couch and looked down to see me fast asleep. The way she described it, the fear was so intense she literally felt her ears ringing, and couldn't tell if the rummaging sound continued. But the girl who looked like me above the coffee table was gone. I thought it was a spooky story but ultimately brushed it off as my mom being half asleep. Then, over the years, there were other sightings, mostly minor. A few examples include a friend asking why I didn't come inside a party one time, because they'd seen me in the driveway walking in. I was never anywhere near that party. Another time, in college apartment, I came home from work and my roommate asked me where I'd gone, sounding surprised. I gestured at my work uniform and said I was just getting home. He went a bit pale and told me I had been home earlier, going back and forth from my bedroom to my bathroom, and waved to him in the hallway with a toothbrush in my mouth. That was definitely impossible, but maybe he was just thinking of another night. A couple other things happened, but I always blamed them on the witness being tired or drunk or simply mistaken. The only thing I never really thought was it could actually be another person around town, both because this had happened in my home, and without going into detail, I have a pretty distinctive look and physical mannerism that make me recognizable. It would be weird if someone else looked like me and had the same unusual gait. In my late 20s, I went through an ugly breakup that ended with me kicking out my ex and having my brother move in with me for a while, for protection and peace of mind. A few weeks after the dust settled, my ex wanted to come by and pick up a few things, so my brother said he would stay home and I could leave the house while the ex grabbed his stuff. I promptly left and didn't return until I was sure he'd been gone for hours. The next day, the ex called me, furious, saying he knew I was home the whole time he was there. I explained that I was not home and didn't want to see him anyway, but he was convinced. He said, "I saw you watching from the upstairs window while I loaded my car, laughing at me." Then he sent a picture. For the first time, I felt convinced and suddenly afraid. There was a woman in the window upstairs and she did look like me, exactly like me. I have never been able to explain this and mostly found it fun to share when people start busting out their own paranormal encounters. Until now, because 20 years after the first encounter, I finally saw her myself tonight. I don't know what to do next, but I can't just keep pretending she isn't real.